Good morning. I'm Pastor Chavaleh, and it is absolutely my joy to welcome you to Mount Cross out online this lovely, blustery Monday morning. So today I have some thoughts on the passage in 2 Corinthians that we talked about yesterday too, but the lovely thing about pretty much every passage in our scriptures is there's lots of different places to dig. So I have some other thoughts too. You may have heard yesterday, if you were at worship or checked in, that the Forgies have a new puppy, otherwise known as the Holy Terror Wiggle Monster. It's a season. Soon she will be a wonderful dog and another longtime companion for my family. But she is very challenging right now. So instead of trying to write at my dining room table this week, I grabbed a pile of books and my computer, and I went to start my day at a local coffee shop. Well, this place is often a good place to work, but that day I was distracted by a very loud group of people sitting far across the place, but definitely making their presence known. Their subjects were varied, but almost uniformly unpleasant gossip. An acquaintance of one had had a heart attack, which was clearly his fault because he had a desk job and didn't take time to exercise. Another's wife was described in agonizingly misogynistic ways, and this was not just a group of guys. She was then compared with another who had a relationship with their 30-something son that they called a mama's boy, and the guy was headed for divorce because he was sick of it. Someone else's purchase of a Mazda Miata, innocently enough, led to a torrent of bigoted slurs. I started watching people leave the coffee shop at this point. One sister had started to enjoy CrossFit, which was then mocked like crazy. And we even managed to cover how Quakers were genetically inbred and strange looking because of it. Quakers? How did they get in on this conversation? Unfortunately, my noise-canceling earphones were not in my backpack. And about the time I was ready to call the morning a loss and head back to a puppy chewing my feet instead of the torrent of nastiness chewing my ears, another person arrived and joined the group. Well, now that you're here, I guess it's time to start our Bible study, the loudest one said. Paul wrote, "We have this treasure in clay jars, so that it be made clear that this extraordinary power belongs to God and doesn't come from us. We're afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be made visible in our bodies. For while we live, we are always being given up to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Jesus may be made visible in our mortal flesh. Death is at work in us, but life in you." I'm so grateful for Paul. He gets it. Right among the afflicted, persecuted, and struck down, he slides in perplexed, but not driven to despair. Because I was so perplexed, and it was hurting my heart. I know far better than to think people who try to follow Christ can or should be held to a higher standard. After all, I proclaim my own discipleship constantly, and I am a poor servant. But even so, to hear so much celebration of ugliness aligned with my faith made me feel bad in the pit of my stomach. I was reminded of a passage from an Atlantic article that one of the Mount Cross peeps sent to me this week, and it reads, "If evangelicals deny the depth of the crisis in front of us," and that is the quote, but I would say, if all Christians, and simply opt for the sort of public relations that can preserve the power structures of yesteryear, We will lose a generation longing to see whether the gospel is real or just another means to mobilize voters or market to customers. This hits because I long to see whether the gospel is real. I long for a gospel that transforms us into a people who are kinder, more loving, more open-hearted and gentler than we were before. I hope in my deepest heart that as we learn to love Jesus better, that we will better love those he loves. And this is where it gets hard for me. Jesus desperately loves the people that broke my heart and made me upset in the coffee shop. His heart longs for them. He came to live and die with them, all for love. So we carry this life and this love in ourselves, in jars of clay. And God seems to not be very concerned whether the clay jar is a priceless Grecian urn or a broken pot. The only requirement is that we be willing to make room, to carry Christ's death. And that means dying to our selfishness, dying to the ways we harm others, dying to our pride and judgment and self-satisfaction. To be very Lutheran about it, to die to sin. We exchange those small but difficult deaths for an abundant life. So may Christ transform us into a people of gentle peace and hope in a world of conflict and despair. May the gospel shine through us in ways that others can wonder if maybe there is something real and solid and meaningful in this life of faith. For me, this means learning again and again how to love people that are difficult for me to love, to see them with the eyes of Christ. Maybe that's on your learning agenda too. It's perhaps not fun, but it's good. And we can be absolutely certain that when we are learning to love people that are difficult for us to love, that we are living the gospel. I don't know about you, but I spend enough time perplexed that a bit of certainty is nice. In the meantime, please do me a favor and show up on Sunday morning or find a time to have some good Lutheran coffee with me, because you, Mount Cross family and extended family, are so very easy to love. And sometimes that's nice too. See you in worship.